Hey everyone, welcome back to Just in the Nick of Crime, where you have made it for day 8's midday recap. As you can see, I'm a little late today. We had a lot of stuff going on this morning, and there was a lot of stuff to kind of talk about, including some things that have come out that are not part of this trial, but are things that you definitely want to know about. So we're going to talk about that, as this goes. There was something that I meant to put in yesterday's end of day recap that I forgot to, and then so I'm going to talk about it real briefly here. And then Diddy has a brand new civil lawsuit against him, and it talks about what he's working with here. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, we're going to talk about that. As well as everything that's going on. Cassie is currently in being cross-examined today by defense. I think that's going to go into tomorrow. She has been on the stand. I don't even know how many hours at this point in time doing the Lord's work up there. Against Diddy, we are learning a lot of stuff about him, nevertheless. So here's what we're going to do. For Instagram and YouTube, you guys can stay right where you are. We do have some photos today that you might want to see. If you are on Insta or YouTube, you can see them. You don't have to go anywhere. TikTok, if you want to see them, you might want to jump over to YouTube. The name there is Just in the Nick of Crime. Same name for all handles, all platforms. At the same time, for my TikTokers who want to stay right where you are because you don't care about seeing photos, which is totally fine, do me a solid. Tap that screen. Let's get that to 10,000. We should be able to get that pretty quickly and get this room packed a little bit. So again, this is the midday lawsuit. The last thing I'm going to talk about before we get into everything going on is I will always mention this, YouTube and Substack specifically. If you are coming in late, you cannot stay for the whole thing, but you want to see what's going on. You want to make sure you don't miss any updates. Substack, you can read them right before I come live. I post my notes on Substack. I'm not even doing it like articles anymore. I'm just doing it as the notes that I have that I'm coming on here to do. So if you want to read those, subscribe on Substack. It is free. You can become a paid subscriber if you want to just support my work, but that is not an obligation, and there will not be any subscriber-only content on Substack or paid subscriber content because everything I talk about, everyone deserves to know. So that's just how that goes. And same thing with YouTube. Everything will be here on YouTube if you prefer to watch. We do the midday recaps and the end-of-day recaps, but just a reminder that going into next week, it is May 15th right now, Thursday, May 15th. Next week, I will be out of town, so I will be probably doing end-of-day recaps only. For the next week, and then once I'm back in town, it'll continue back to midday and end of day recaps. So that being said, let's get into it. First of all, this is what we talked about. I made a video about this, a short, talking about Suge Knight. For those of y'all who don't know who Suge Knight, he is a scary dude. I chose this photo to show you how big of a dude this guy is. He was in the car when Tupac got shot. He was driving. He took a bullet himself. And he is currently serving 28 years for voluntary manslaughter. He hit somebody with his car on purpose and then put it in reverse and backed over them again. That is the type of person Suge Knight is. To give you another idea, I saw an interview with him a while ago. He is a prison boss. He walks in and basically he is the one. He wanted some food or something, and there was a new guy working, like, a guard, and he asked him, like, who the hell are you? What are you doing back here? And Suge's like, I'm the guy who decides whether or not you go home today. So he is a badass. Don't want to mess with him. So anyways, I will tell you what he said. You can take it for what it's worth. So basically, he recently did an interview. By the way, he's also the former CEO of Death Row Records, if that helps, which was the rival record company to Bad Boy. Even though him and Diddy, Sean Combs, have a long-standing rivalry, he doesn't think that Diddy should go to prison. He doesn't recommend anybody should go to prison, though, at all. He thinks that nobody should be there because it's just a horrific place, which is kind of the point of prison, but I digress. Basically, he said the first thing he said is that he believes that Diddy, Puff, he calls him Puff. He goes, he believes that Puff will be fine. The first thing he said was, even if he gets convicted, he believes, Suge's words, not mine, that President Trump would likely pardon him. He said that Knight suggested that Diddy has significant influence and government connections and cited Trump's 2021 pardon of Michael Harris. Or 2020 pardon, Michael Harris, a Death Row Records co-founder, as a precedent. He also implied that if that didn't work, Diddy's influence could sway the jurors, stating that convincing just one would lead to a favorable outcome. Convincing one. However, let's just remind everybody that these assertions are speculative, and Suge Knight says what Suge Knight says. You think he's wrong? You tell him. You tell him. I'm not telling Suge shit. Diddy has a new lawsuit against him, guys. Diddy has a new lawsuit against him. Okay. She says this woman's her name, she's going by a Jane Doe. This is a civil lawsuit. This is not part of the ongoing federal suit. And this is a picture. It's kind of funny, this picture that's here. Again, if you're on TikTok, you can't see the picture. You got to jump over. Um, Basically, she said that back in July of 2020, or sorry, back in July of 2001, that Diddy R'd her in his Manhattan apartment. She had invited him over after they met at a nightclub. And once there, he R'd her, describing his ready to go appendages as resembling that of a large Tootsie Roll. Um, Kind of a funny way to describe it. I think at one point she said that she knew it wasn't going to hurt that much because of that. Um, the filing accuses him of using his celebrity status to create a sense of entitlement over her body, which led to a violent assault. This lawsuit mirrors many of the disturbing patterns that have been described by Cassie Ventura while on the stand over the last few days. Both women allege that Combs leveraged his fame, wealth, and connections to manipulate, control, and ultimately assault them. For this Jane Doe, the 2001 incident represents not only a personal trauma, but a larger part of the system of abuse that people have claimed Combs has perpetuated over the years, over the decades, really. Now, what are the legal ramifications of this? And then, of course, what does Diddy's team say about this? Well, he has consistently denied all allegations of S misconduct. His legal team has dismissed the latest lawsuit as, quote, another opportunistic attempt to smear Mr. Combs' reputation with false and salacious claims. However, the accumulation of lawsuits and testimonies is painting an increasingly damning picture in the court of public opinion. If convicted, obviously, we know that he's going to spend the rest of his life in prison, not for this because that's a civil lawsuit, but for what he's up against. And now this new lawsuit is a separate civil matter. It does still add some significant weight to the narrative that is being established in court, right? Now let's talk about what we have as far as who's coming into court before we get into the testimony, because I always like to talk about this when they tell us what the people are wearing, who's there. I like to share this with you guys because I think that it paints a picture of what's going on. And kind of, since we don't have cameras, we have sketches, we get the pictures like this one, which was outside of the courtroom before his mother went in, or certain things that happened throughout the day. I think that those are really significant, and it's nice to share so you guys can kind of picture what's going on. So the family members, including Combs' mom and children, have been arriving together in a black van. Cassie, of course, is returning to the witness stand today, or returned to the witness stand today. She came to court in a black suit that looked almost like a tuxedo top. She had on a light-colored blouse underneath. And she entered the courtroom, obviously, and is in the witness box. The jacket is like double-breasted, and that's what I have for you on what she's wearing. Now, talking about a little bit how she's kind of going in, she said after hours of direct testimony recounting her abusive relationship with Combs, Diddy turned to his family, mouthed the words, "I'm okay." Now she's going to be questioned by his lawyers. This was what happened yesterday. Now, sitting between his lawyers today, Sean Combs is wearing a sand-colored sweater and a collared shirt. He's been more fidgety today than he has been in the last 2 days. He's leaning back and forth, taking his black frame glasses on and off. During the break, he handed a note to his lawyer, who was leading the cross-examination of Ventura. His 3 sons and his mother, Janice, are in the spectators gallery. However, his twin daughters, Jesse and Delilah, were traveling yesterday for their high school prom in LA. And so that's kind of what's going on there. Alex Hoffine, Cassie's husband, is also in the room. Now, his family has continued to rally against him throughout this entire ordeal. They've arrested him or rallied around him after the arrest. They've rallied around him since the trial. His children said that they would hold on to the truth, knowing it will prevail and nothing will break the strength of our family. That is what they have said. Their support has continued this week during the federal trial. They have been there every single day. There have been times where his daughters left the room during some of the more graphic testimony, obviously. The court gallery included an extended group of his family members, including 6 of his 7 children. This was Monday. Quincy Brown, Justin Combs, Christian Combs, Chance Combs, the 2 twins, Delilah and Jesse. And his youngest child, the 2-year-old, is not in attendance, as I don't think she should be. Then the second row was his mother. She was also there for him every single day in court when he was tried in New York back in 2001 for that gun possession and bribery charge after that nightclub shooting, the one that I personally think he orchestrated and is responsible for, but Shine was taken down for. So um, nobody has really commented on the case from the family at this point in time. They've just kind of been there supporting them. So now cross-examination on Cassie begins. And guys, again, these are the sketches that are there if you want to see them. The cross-examination is going to begin. And real quick, for those of y'all just coming in on Insta or YouTube, or sorry, TikTok, please, TikTokers, follow, hit the screen. Let's get that number up. Let's see where we're at. We're at 20,000. Let's see if we can get it to 50, if we can do that. But if you come in late and you want to catch this, you can get the recaps also on Substack, and they are being recorded live on YouTube, so they're there for you guys to be able to watch. And I know that this gets to be a lot. I have notes here. We tend to read from them because there's just so much. I want to make sure that we don't miss anything out. So cross-examine began this morning. The person who started it really was, oh my God, what's her name? Estavo. She's been really pretty nice about it, and we're going to talk about that in a minute as well. But basically, what the point of this cross-examination is to scrutinize how infidelity fueled a combustible, nearly 11-year relationship between Cassie and Diddy. But here's what was interesting that we learned last night. Yesterday, they said that they basically have had to change their game plan pretty much on the fly because Cassie's testimony has been so flawless and has gone differently than they had anticipated. This highly paid stellar legal team was thrown off guard by how incredible Cassie's testimony has been. I'm not joking. I'm not embellishing this. It has been flawless. It went so much differently than they expected that they have had to change their strategy pretty much last minute, which in my opinion is a huge win for the prosecution that's happening. Basically, they were talking about the infidelities, in questioning them, the judge kind of, or the prosecution kind of questioned about that. Defense said that it was important, and ultimately the judge allowed it. So they said, quote, everybody knows that we're going to bring up infidelities, that we're going to want to bring up text messages of infidelities, and that these text messages are often colorful in language. Now, during direct examination, this was yesterday, just to kind of give you a little bit of an idea of what we're going into. She held up really well under direct questioning by prosecutors. She cried several times, but for the most part remained composed and matter of fact, as she talked about some of the most sensitive subjects anybody could imagine expressing. This was in a courtroom packed with family and friends and journalists and Diddy right there. Everybody a spectator to what's going on and listening, and she held it with such poise and conviction, honestly, really quite well. As a reminder, again, she is also in her third trimester of pregnancy with her third child, which she's having with personal trainer Alex Fine, who was Diddy's personal trainer at one point, who has also been there every day for support. So again, this cross-examination, which begun today, will likely finish up on Friday, y'all, on Friday. So Anna Estavo, who is the lawyer that started for cross-examination, she gave a notably gentle tone. Why is this important? Well, it's different than what most cross-examination defense attorneys strive for. What they want to do is they want to unsettle a witness early on. That's their goal, to agitate them, to unsettle them, which is typically why they come off as kind of hostile. Well, she didn't do that. She came off in a very gentle tone. Her approach was calm and conversational. And given the fact, I'm going to say that I appreciate this from the defense, because given the fact that Cassie is like a couple weeks out from giving birth, given the highly sensitive nature of what she's discussing, it's nice that this attorney is choosing to take that approach versus an agitative approach. Make no mistake that they are there to try to help their client win. But I think even at this point, the defense has to recognize the fact that she is a victim of domestic violence, but this is not a trial of domestic violence. So I think for them to show empathy towards that is a good thing for their part. Number one, for a strategy, but two, for her as a witness and her self-preservation. That's just my opinion. If you disagree with me, drop the thoughts in the comments, especially in the replay of this. But yeah, I think that that's a really nice approach that she's doing that. Okay. So here's what she began with, quote, "You and Sean Combs were in love for 11 years, right?" "Yeah," Cassie replied. You knew the Sean that he didn't want anybody else to see but you. And by doing this, the defense's aim to establish that Ventura's relationship with Combs was long-term, loving, but complicated by jealousy and emotional struggles. Ventura did not agree with this characterization at all. Estavo further pressed on Ventura's own descriptions of Combs, asking if she remembered calling him larger than life during her earlier testimony. Ventura confirmed, yes, she did. She goes, Quote, but to you, he was Sean, and you knew the Sean that other people didn't see. Ventura again confirmed. When asked if she always knew she was special to Combs, Ventura admitted, no, I don't think that I always knew. You sometimes knew, sometimes is fair, was her answer. Defense then goes to present an early relationship messages to kind of counter the abuse narrative. The defense introduced a series of loving text messages exchanged between Combs and Ventura in the early years of their relationship, attempting to paint a picture of mutual affection rather than coercion. One of the first messages Gustavo presented was from Ventura in 2008. She's saying, quote, I'll miss you so much. I'd fly wherever you needed me, whenever. In response, Combs said, I love you so much, it makes me cry. Oh, sorry. Yeah, that was from him. He said, I love you so much, it makes me cry. These messages were foundational to the defense's argument that their relationship was not defined solely by abuse, but also by intimacy and choice. And I'm going to give my personal opinion on this in a second. Let's get through these messages first. Gustavo highlighted additional messages which both parties expressed gratitude and love. In one exchange, Combs wrote, I'm truly a lucky man. And she replied, I'm a very lucky woman. Love you so much. Another 2008 email from Ventura echoed this same sentiment after Combs thanked her for flying to Atlanta to be with him. I love you so much. Prosecutors objected frequently to these exhibits, but the judge overruled many of their objections, giving the defense leeway to build this counter narrative. All right. Now, before I go to this next part, here's what I want to say. When you have and this is my opinion, okay, and again, he's not on trial here for domestic violence, but clearly I don't think anybody can argue the fact that he is domestically violent, right? There is something known, if you've been in a relationship like this, you know what it is. If you've never been in the relationship like this, you might not know, but there's something called love bombing, where basically they show you so much attention, so much affection, and then it starts into a cycle, and it becomes a cycle. You know, you have the love, you have the intimacy, you have the affection, you have the gifts, you have the attention, you have the trips, you have everything to make you want to stay with that person. And the people who say, you know, I'll change, I won't do this again, I'm sorry, this wasn't who I was. And I feel like with what we've heard, what we're hearing today and what we've already heard, that Diddy did a lot of that. He knew how to play the game. He knew how to manipulate the situation to keep her to stay, because not only would he do this love bombing to her, he would also then send his goons after her when she didn't answer her phone. So two things can be true at the same time. He can show this affection to her. At the same time, he can be highly abusive. And again, if you've been in a relationship like that, whether it's a physical, verbal, emotionally abusive, abusive relationship, you've seen that. I grew up in a relationship like that. I had step parents that were like that. My mother is like that. You know, she would do these horrific things and then love bomb you, and you felt bad about it. Like, okay, well, whatever. And that's kind of how it went. And that was a verbal and, that was verbal and physical abuse of a relationship. So there's a lot of different ways that it can happen. And then as somebody just said, that creates a trauma bond as well. So I just kind of want to make sure that you guys understand that, are people who have been fortunate enough, privileged enough to not have been in a relationship like that. That's kind of something that you understand that's going on. Or I hope that you understand that this is something that is a common practice when it comes to people who are abusers. Okay. Now, let me change the sketch for today. I know you guys like seeing these sketches. The defense continued pressing exchanges where Ventura and Combs used affectionate nicknames. In 2009, they talked about the text again. I love you so much, it makes me cry. Ventura responded, you hungry pop pop? Because if you remember, Diddy at one point asked her, what did you call your grandfather? And she said, pop pop. And Diddy wanted to be called pop pop. It is weird. It is cringe. I'm not here to judge people's kinks, but y'all, come on. She explained, of course, what the pop pop nickname meant, which I just told you. And he would sometimes call her baby girl. And then when Combs replied to that one, are you hungry? Combs replied, no. Let me know if you change your mind. Then in April of 2010, another message showing Ventura writing, going to sleep now so it can be tomorrow faster and you can be home. Love you. Combs responded, love my baby. The jury was also shown an exchange from around 2.5 years ago, or 2.5 years into their relationship. It was sent via BlackBerry. I didn't really have to put the part about BlackBerry in there, but I wanted to just remind you guys that BlackBerries existed. I held on to my BlackBerry till the bitter end, y'all. I did. I was a late adopter to the iPhone because I loved my BlackBerry so much, but I finally did it. Nevertheless, in this exchange, Ventura said, going to sleep now so it can be tomorrow. Love you faster. I love you. Combs, love my baby. Ventura replied to that one with a smiley face. Combs continued, I love you so much. It consumes my life. Ventura reflected, in that saying, I wonder the same thing for myself, saying, quote, I wonder the same thing for myself, like, who was I before we decided to be together? And Combs said, I never knew it could be like this. Then they continued to further cement this narrative. Ventura read emails aloud on the witness stand. She had to read them. And these were from January of 2008, where Combs wrote, it makes me so happy that you would fly out to ATL just to see me. I'm a very lucky man. I love you. I miss you. I can't wait to hold you. Ventura responded, I'm a very lucky woman. I miss you so much. I'd fly wherever you needed me, whenever. I love you. Ventura then testified that during this early phase of this relationship, she and Combs frequently exchanged loving messages like that. And of course, when you are early, if you beat somebody on day one of the relationship, they're probably not going to stay with you. You have to start your manipulation. Again, this is me just giving you my commentary on this. You have to start that loving exchange early. And I think that Cassie did love him and was infatuated and smitten and truly in love. And I don't think I'm not qualified to diagnose Sean Combs. Okay. But to me, as somebody who can't diagnose this, but does have experience dealing with narcissistic behavior, I would say that it's safe to say that he is a narcissist. You can disagree with me, and that's okay if you do. All right. I'm not qualified to diagnose him. But what I can tell you is a true fact about narcissists that I am qualified to explain to you guys is that they are incapable of love. They cannot love anybody but themselves. It is a flaw that they have, that they possess. They don't love their spouses. They don't love their children. I thought it's a hard pill for a lot of people to swallow. It was a hard pill for me to swallow. They don't love their children. They don't love their animals. They don't love themselves. They look at these people, these things, as extensions of who they are. Right? That's what they are. They're a means to an end to make them look good, to have this persona out there that they're this good person, they're this family person. So, why I think Diddy's kids probably love him, I don't believe that he is capable of truly loving them. He can show affection, he can show love, but at the end of the day, that true, actual love isn't there for people who are narcissistic. All right. So that's just a little glimpse stuff. Here's a new slide for you, a new sketch for y'all. Again, if you're on TikTok, you can't see. You got to jump over to YouTube. So then let the defense move their focus onto the freak-offs and consent and Cassie's participation. All right. So Cassie told Combs in a 2009 email that having freak-offs was the next step in their relationship. However, she also acknowledged that her conflicted feelings, writing that she needed to trust him more to be sexually free. To quote, in order for me to be open with things that we do in bed, I need to feel safe, like home, like this is my husband, and this is the only man that I will ever have this aggressive S side of me. She said, when we used to freak off when we were in love, there were no questions asked. It felt right. It literally made sense for the next step in our S life together. When asked by the defense if freak offs were an important part of her relationship with Combs, Ventura responded, it was an integral part. Now, I'm going to stop here real quick and talk about this because a lot of what you're seeing in this email contradicts what she said yesterday, where she talks about how she didn't want to do this, how he made her do this, etc. And I'm not here to rip this apart, or be that person. I'm not a judge, jury, or lawyer, but me reading it as somebody who definitely has bias against Diddy on this. That, to be fair, when you're reading this to me, they're saying that in this email, she's the one saying that the freak offs were the next step in the relationship. And I would imagine that's her parroting what he said. Again, remember when she met him, she didn't have the vocabulary about the things that they were doing. The first time any type of oral pleasure was handled, it was him that was teaching her, and she didn't really know what to do. So basically everything she knew about that part of her early on came from him. She was a kid. She was 19. Think about how you were when you were 19 years old. So this 36-year-old man, is pushing her into this, right? And that's how I'm looking at this. So even if this seems that she is a willing participant, I don't know how much that really is true. And I don't believe that that's true. And I think somebody just asked about the progression. I think that we're going to see the progression. Okay. Remember, she was 19. The word teen, she was still a kid. You are barely a legal adult. Your full frontal cortex has not been fully developed. She still has like 6 years before it is. in my mind, as a almost 43-year-old man, that is a 19-year-old is a child. That is a child. And frankly, as a 36-year-old man, Diddy should have had no interest in her because that is a child. There's nothing in common there. Well, there's one thing, I guess, in common, and Diddy got what he wanted from that. All right. When somebody said not true, she got into a relation. I'm gonna cover this real quick. Somebody goes not true, and Butterfinger, I'm not picking on you. I want to address it because I think that you bring up something, and you're not totally wrong here. She goes not true. She got into a relationship with him at 22. She met him at 19. He kissed her first on her 21st birthday, and she did meet at 19. But bear in mind that when people start grooming people, it starts pretty early on. So even though they might not have been in a relationship at that point in time, grooming starts early, and that is going to be a hill that I die on. So, anyways, so I'm not picking on you. I'm not arguing with you. I'm just kind of giving you that point of it. So, we did a case a little while ago. J.P. Miller, Micah Miller. He met her when she was like a teenager, things like that, and it's just how it works. It takes time to get them into that situation, to build that trust and all of that. Still, at 21, when she turns 21, he's 38. There's still nothing, full frontal cortex still isn't there. But I see what you're saying, and I appreciate the correction, nonetheless. Now, moving on, defense then began to press Cassie on the substance and S videos. So the defense asked Cassie if she deleted the videos she had of Combs on her devices, which she confirmed. They then showed an email exchange between Combs and her in August of 2009, confirming what appears to suggest the existence of videos and the pair's illicit substance use. Ventura emailed Combs, "Do you have any pills on you?" Combs replied, "I'm going to do it again." Ventura said, "I just deleted the video off my camera. It was so dope." In court, Ventura testified that she was using opiates like Norco at the time. When asked if she preferred to have freak off videos recorded on her own devices, she said, "I didn't want them to be recorded at all." Defense then had Cassie read graphic freak off messages aloud. I might have to edit them for social media safe, but we'll do the best we can for you guys to understand what it says. Okay. And basically, the defense is trying at this point to paint a picture of Cassie's relationship with him as consensual. Remember, part of this whole situation with the trafficking is the trafficking suggests that what he was doing wasn't consensual. So this is a integral part of the prosecution's case, is to prove that this was trafficking, that she was forced into it, and the defense is here trying to use the messages that this was fully consensual. And let's just get into it. She goes, and I'm going to use the word corny here, like, things are corny, except change the C to an H. That's what Combs wrote in one of the more tamer messages, by the way. Ventura responded with, "Oh my God, I was about to text you. OMG, I was about to text you the same thing." In another exchange, they discussed an upcoming freak off. Combs said, "I can't wait." Ventura replied, "I can't wait either." The defense showed the jury a text conversation between Combs and Ventura from August of 2009, where Combs asked, "When do you want to freak off?" And LOL. Ventura said, "I'm always ready to freak off." 2 days later, Ventura sent another explicit message, and Combs responded with, "I can't wait to watch you. I want you to get real hot," with 2 T's. Ventura responded with, "Me too. I just want it to be uncontrollable." Gustavo made Ventura read these graphic messages aloud, word by word, while the lawyer read Combs's parts. The judge allowed these messages, ruling that while they don't discuss what actually happened, they reflect what was being anticipated. The jury was then shown more graphic exchanges, continuations of texts about the freak-offs, about substances. Defense also let me see here real quick. I think a couple of these are repeats of them. Then Cassie begins to express emotional needs beyond the S relationship. The defense presented more messages, kind of trying to show Cassie's emotional frustration with Combs. This is basically as the relationship progresses. Okay. Aiming to humanize her desires for a deeper relationship while still pushing for the idea of mutual agency. So basically, here's what they're doing in this. For this next part, they're starting to show the evolution of the relationship, where she begins to get frustrated. She expresses that she needs more emotional support. Her emotional needs to be met beyond just the S relationship. Okay, and I'll talk about that in a second. a little bit more in depth. Now, the defense presented more of these messages, again, showing her emotional frustration. In April of 2010, in an email, she expressed disappointment that he would rush off to the phone and not spend time with her. Saying, quote, "That's not being in a relationship with someone that you love and you are in love with. I am really hurt by the way you deal with me. I don't need your money. I need some attention." And another message from Ventura she read in court. She said, "I haven't talked to you at all. I know you can take 3 minutes of your day to talk to me and you don't even try. You're in too much of a rush to get me off the phone. That's not being in a relationship with someone that you love and are in love with. I am really hurt by the way you deal with me. I don't need your money. I need some attention. I am thankful, but I can pay for these things myself." These messages were used by the defense to suggest open communication between the two of them and showing her willingness to voice her emotional needs. And I think that what they're trying to really do here is show that, why did you never leave? Why did you never say anything? Why did you not speak up if this wasn't something that you wanted? And that's what the picture they're trying to paint here. And I think that as this progresses, we've learned already, we've heard testimony of, and we've seen video of the violence he can be, which then changes the entire dynamic once violence is brought into it. But again, we'll just continue on. The change. I'm gonna give you guys a new slide now. We've looked at this for a while. I think that's it. That's all the slides I got. All right. I'm just gonna take them down then. Hold on. Okay. So then Cassie said that she needed to feel safe to be open. In December of 2009, she wrote to Combs, "In order for me to be more open with the things we do in bed, I need to feel safe, like home. Like this is my husband, and this is the only man that will ever have this aggressive S side of me." She then reflected on how her feelings had shifted. She goes, "The last time was a mistake, but since this has made me feel a little dirty and grimy as opposed to S and spontaneous, that's the only reason why I go back and forth in my mind with wanting and not wanting to do it." She added, "When we used to freak off when we were so in love, there were no questions asked, but she didn't feel that same level of love anymore, at least." So these are things starting to change in the relationship, the dynamics. You can kind of see this progression happening in real time, almost as, in real time, but then as this goes through the dynamics of their relationship. The defense then emphasized the emotional connection and open communication. They continued on talking about an October 2007 email, which was a few weeks after her 21st birthday, where she received the kiss that she said she doesn't want. She said that on the stand. She said, "We've only really had 1 week of each other just together, and I can't say that it's been the best and worst." She described her hopes for their future. She said, "I liked what it was. I dream of a beautiful future together. Who knew I'd fall so fast?" But she also voiced some of her insecurities, saying, "It's hard for me to handle that. On the other hand, you're constantly weary of me. I'm sneaky. I've never seemed to make the right decisions to you. I'm a spoiled brat. I'm dramatic, disrespectful, and for some reason, you just don't trust me." She then testified that this kind of emotional sharing was typical for her, but not for him. She said, quote, "It was usually like a one-way street when it came to messages like this." So throughout this cross-examination, what the defense was trying to attempted was to contrast the prosecution's narrative of coercion by illustrating a relationship that was filled with complexity, love, need for approval, emotional frustrations, mutual intimacy, and communication. The consistent presentation of messages like, "I'm a very lucky woman. I miss you so much. I'd fly wherever you need me to be, whenever, whenever. I love you. And I love you so much it consumes my life." Those are intended to reinforce the defense's argument that Ventura was not merely a victim, but an active participant in this highly complicated relationship that blended both a personal and professional entanglement, if you will. The defense then goes on to highlight Cassie's independent success before Combs. And basically, what their effort here was to counter the prosecution's portrayal of Ventura as basically under Combs's control, saying she had to do it for her career. The defense shifted their focus to her professional achievements before that relationship even began. Estavo questioned Ventura about her initial success in the music and modeling industries, and she confirmed that she was doing well on her own prior to dating Combs. She said, quote, "You were an up-and-coming star." Ventura replied, "I guess you could say that." The defense framed this to suggest that Ventura was not a powerless newcomer, but was already building a successful career independently of Combs. The defense then also explored how Cassie entered Combs's orbit altogether. She testified that she met Combs through Ryan Leslie, who was a music producer that she dated for about 3 years, beginning when she was like 18 or 19. Leslie was about 10 years older than her, making Combs the second significantly older man she had dated. Ventura clarified that her initial relationship with Combs was strictly professional when she was first signed at his label. which is Bad Boy Records, for those of y'all who don't know. Combs supported her after a poor TV performance, a gesture that she said meant a lot to her. Ventura recounted an early pivotal moment after her 21st birthday. She wanted to join Combs on a trip to Miami. However, she was still dating Leslie at the time. And so, to avoid suspicion, she testified that she used a flyer for an event as a pretext for the trip, giving the impression of a professional engagement. This trip ultimately marked the turning point where Ventura and Combs' relationship became intimate, right? Combs' addictions and their impact on the relationship. So, during Cross, Cassie was also questioned about Sean's alleged addictions. Whether or not he was an addict, Cassie responded, I would say he was an addict. She explained that he was addicted to success at first, but confirmed he was also addicted to opiates at one point. She shared that Combs himself had admitted to being addicted and that his behavior became more volatile when he was through that opiate withdrawal. Then they got into the swingers lifestyle and preferences. And let me pause real quick before I read the notes on this, because this is something that we learned that they were going to do, that they were going to take this and paint it more as this was a fully consensual swingers lifestyle, that this is something that they went into willingly. There was no force. There was no coercion. This is what she wanted to do. And this was just their preferences. She knew this going in, and to be part of this relationship, she did it on her own. That is what their goal is here. They said that the other day, that this was going to be their approach, and this is where they kind of start to take that approach. So again, in trying to label much of that behavior as a swingers lifestyle, she was then directly asked whether the free costs were related to this lifestyle. Now, Cassie acknowledged that there were S elements involved. She made a distinction, saying that they were very different, basically saying, no, they are not. Why there are similar elements that you would see being like S elements that you would see in a swingers lifestyle, the distinction of these freak offs was very different than a swingers lifestyle. Because remember, we learned yesterday that he would take her to swingers clubs. So she knows that side of it. I'm going to go ahead. There's somebody says I'm going to go ahead and put this guy in timeout here because I can. Then Cassie begins to power through the explicit narration. Sorry, somebody said something, and I was like, you know what? We're not going to deal with this guy today. So he can just sit there and watch silently. Cassie was asked to read aloud explicit text message between herself and Combs, which described the nature of their S encounters, and acknowledging the content might be difficult for her. The defense attorney, because it might be difficult, offered to read these aloud. But Cassie insisted on reading them herself. She read through several lengthy messages, which I don't have what those are, all of them at this point in time. I don't know if I have that many of them at all. But I'll try to get those maybe for later, and then we can share them. But she remained composed even as the courtroom fell silent in response to the graphic nature of the communications. She reflected on watching Combs have relations with other women. Under questioning by Combs, Cassie revealed that she occasionally watched Combs sleep with other women during their relationship, stating that this occurred about 4 times and that Combs had explained it as part of the swingers lifestyle. The testimony highlighted the contrast between the activities she was coerced into and her limited participation in the freak-offs. Defense also suggests that Cassie ended Combs' career, which is a heck of a statement. The defense turned its focus to the lawsuit that Combs had in 2023, suggesting that this legal action ruined Combs' career. Cassie responded saying, I could understand that when she was asked about the lawsuit, which made concept of the free cost public, which led to significant damages to his public reputation and his image. Defense also referenced Cassie's previous testimony about Combs' threats to end her career by releasing explicit videos when she tried to leave the relationship. And let me stop here, because if this, like, I get what defense is trying to do, but if this isn't a victim blaming type of thing, like statement or path, I don't know what is. Because let's talk about this real quick. Diddy ended his own career. Like, why is it Cassie's the problem? Because she took part of things that she didn't want to be part of. We've seen the stories. We know the stories about Diddy, how he'll send goons after. We've seen the type of violence. We've seen the video of violence, of what he can do. Yet he's the victim of this? No. And by the way, a few more details, because she now made some of those very private details of that settled lawsuit more public. And here's what we've learned in case you haven't heard it. One is that lawsuit that she brought against him that was settled in 24 hours was $20 million. And originally, here's what happened, apparently, because we knew that she had approached him before, to try to handle it privately, and he declined, or it didn't really do anything about it. So that's why she filed the lawsuit, which ultimately put him in the position that he's in today. Had he paid her or done, or when she approached him, privately, he would not be sitting in the chair that he is sitting right now, facing what he's sitting. He did this to himself. She had to endure a decade of abuse, and he's got a lot of money, and she deserves to be compensated for that. Given that the emotional and physical scars will never fully go away, money's a good way to penalize him for it. Because when you're somebody like Diddy, who is again, in my opinion, narcissist, money is what you care about. Money is your God. Money is what rules your world. So hitting him where it hurts is going after him financially. So what we learned yesterday, which I haven't, I learned it in the afternoon, so this wasn't any of the recaps. But what we learned yesterday was that apparently Cassie had written a book, and to my knowledge, this book, maybe I did mention it yesterday, has not been published, or not yet. I've not been able to find anything where it is. And she sent it to him saying, for $30 million, you can buy the rights to this book. And this book detailed everything, a lot of what was laid out in her lawsuit. And he ignored it. She reached out to people in his circle, asked about it, and they told her he didn't take it seriously. He's not going to do anything with it. Asked if he had read it. The answer was no, not taking it seriously. So that's why she filed the lawsuit. So he's in this position, he's in this position. And every once in a while we have trolls, right? We have trolls. And I know a lot of y'all say you shouldn't engage with trolls, but I'm going to engage with this troll because oftentimes when we deal with trolls, we can look at it as a learning opportunity. We have a person, Roderick Shaw, saying she is the problem. She wanted to be famous, going from man to man, living the rich life. She wanted the money. So let's put your comment up here. First of all, I'm going to give you a nickel's worth of free advice, Roderick. If that is your child, posting your child as your profile picture is a very bad idea. Somebody who covers true crime and current events. I will share with you something that exists that is absolutely disgusting. Anybody can lift a photo of your child off the internet. You have pictures of them in your things that are publicly available, right? Not your private friends list. And there is a company that makes dolls for people to pleasure themselves with. And they also make what's called a mini doll, which is supposed to be a travel size, but let's be real, it's the size of a child. That's what it is. And you can somebody can lift that photo and put your child's face without your permission. The company will do it on this doll. So maybe just a nickel's worth of free advice before we get further, and I school you on what's going on here. Maybe don't use your child for a profile picture. Just my 2 cents. Now, here's the thing. Cassie was somebody who had talent. She put out her albums. She was a model. She had a career prior to meeting Diddy. Okay? She got in a relationship with Diddy. She said in text messages and emails that she didn't need his money long before, emails that were never going to be made public 20 years ago, early on in the relationship. I think that she wanted a relationship and she lived in a world where she had access to higher powered, wealthier people, producers, directors, music people. That's what she did. She was trying to get a record deal. But when you're in that world, you have access to these people. Those are the people you end up dating. Cassie is a beautiful woman. So yes, men are going to be attracted to her. Okay. So, but to sit here and say that she did this herself, she's the problem. We've seen evidence, physical evidence of him beating the crap out of her. We've seen this stuff. And for you to sit here and say anything other than this man is an abuser, I'm not telling you to sit here and say, he's trafficking, he's committing racketeering. I'm not saying for you to say at this point in time that he's guilty of what he's on trial for. But even you have to admit that he's domestically violent. He is an abuser. He is got a temper on him that makes him very comfortable to beat women. And any man who thinks that it is okay to hit and beat a woman, any man who does that, in my opinion, not in my opinion, is not a man. All right? It's not a man. And when you have somebody who, when she tries to leave, his goons come and get her and bring her back, that is not somebody who is in this willingly, and that is not somebody who is the problem. The problem is the person who is beating the crap out of her and abusing her. That is the problem. Maybe had he not beaten the crap out of her, they would have still been together. And that is my education that I'm going to give you and other people who need to hear that. So she was not the problem. He was the problem. Maybe what we need to start doing, because this is all too much of an issue when it comes to women, especially with high-powered men, is instead of trying to victim blame and victim shame the women are in this situation, when you have grown-ass adult men physically harming them or making them do things, overpowering them, threatening them, maybe have a little bit of sympathy and empathy, because what you're doing here, when you are one of the people making comments like what you're making, you are projecting that you are the same type of man that is. And you're triggered by it because you've done the same thing. Anyways, so let's move on, guys. Sorry, I get on my tangents. Um, so Cassie confirmed that Combs frequently exerted control over her, not only in terms of her actions, but also her physical appearance. We talked about that yesterday. She recalled Combs would often tell her what to wear, even provided feedback on clothing, body piercings, and hairstyle. Again, something we learned about. Defense brought that back up. Cassie acknowledged that Combs' significant influence over her fashion and culture, but she described his feedback as part of the control he wielded over her life. Combs. She also described how Combs would call her incessantly if she did not answer his calls, especially if he suspected she was cheating. She stated that this was just one of the reasons for his calls, though he would often reach out for other reasons as well. Do I have any of my YouTube mods? I know I'm just going to do it myself. Somebody's saying that Cassie's not a victim. You know what? I hope. Here's my wish for you people. Okay, that say things like this. My wish for people is that you mouth off to somebody and they do to you what Diddy did to her in that hotel room. And then you sit there and cry a victim, and all of us say, well, maybe you shouldn't have mouthed off because you're not really a victim. Maybe that's what I wish would happen to you. I truly do. Because sometimes people like you need to experience that before you realize what things are like. So that is my wish. I can be petty, guys. It's fine. Cassie also explained that the volume of calls increased significantly when Combs suspected infidelity. Cassie's testimony about the freak-offs and her need for secrecy. She testified that she made an effort to keep the freak-offs a secret, not just from the public, but from Combs' own employees and friends. She shared that while Combs' assistants often helped set up the hotel room, she never remembered any staff members walking into the room while the freak-offs were happening. She also acknowledged that she never spoke to her friends about the freak-offs and was adamant that she didn't want anybody to know about them. That's not somebody who's happy with what they're doing, by the way. We got more people doing this. She said, why get mad at other people's opinions? What's that? When everybody doesn't feel like she's 100% a victim, including me. Well, Ms. Nollins, here's why we can say that here. My platform is not a democracy. I don't have to like your other opinion. And when I hear them, I can easily mute you or call you out for it, because it's my platform and my channel, and I'm allowed to do that because I can run it the way I want. But one way that I do run my channel is having been a victim of abuse myself growing up, is that I don't let people make excuses for abusers. I don't let people victim blame, victim shame, or trivialize the events that people have gone through. So to answer your question, that is why. And with that said, we're going to go ahead and end your comments as well. That is why. My platform will always be, if you are somebody who is a victim of abuse, you will always be safe here, because if people like that come on, they will be muted and or removed. And now one of my mods is here, so she can take care of it. So if any more of them come. Anyways. Sorry, guys. I say it once. They want this. Here's what they want. I say it. They want a couple moments of attention, and I give them the attention, and that's why they do it. But again, the reason I do it is to educate as to why we have these conversations. And that is something that will never be tolerated by me. Emily says to mod her, Emily, it's not like TikTok where I can mod you midstream. I have to do it outside of it. It's a whole process with YouTube, but we can do that. She talked about how her and Combs had many conversations about the swingers lifestyle. She confirmed that. And that she was exposed to it firsthand at the clubs that he took her to, that they visited. She confirmed, what else? So she clarified that while the freak-offs involved S activity with others, they were distinctively different from what she considered a typical swingers lifestyle. She said, while they shared some experiences with others, the nature of their encounters was coercive, not consensual. We talked about the civil lawsuit and the impact on him. And here is the defense's struggles throughout the day so far. Throughout the day, the defense's cross-exam of Cassie seems disjointed, with many interruptions and objections from prosecution. The defense struggled to present a cohesive case, often jumping between topics and attempting to cast Cassie's relationship with Combs in a more favorable light. However, Cassie remained composed and offered measured responses to the defense's repetitive and occasionally convoluted questioning. So basically, here's what this translates back to, going to what we talked about a little bit earlier, where defense had to last minute change their strategy because of the way that she has composed herself, handled herself, answered the question. It's gone differently than they anticipated or expected. They are fumbling. That's what's happening. That's what's happening. A lot, guys, early on. A lot, guys, early on. These recaps used to be up 35 minutes or so, but now, as you can see, we're getting a lot more into it. Anyways, so for the stream of the midday updates, that's it. We'll be back later this evening once we have the rest of the day out. Again, this cross-examination of Cassie is going to go into tomorrow. I'm not sure if it's going to be the full day yet or not. We'll see how the day ends. We should have more clarity on that pretty soon. But if you are on YouTube or Instagram, please hit that, and TikTok, hit that follow button if you don't already. If you are any of these platforms and you came in late, please know that this entire stream is recorded on Instagram. The notes will be put on Substack as well. I need to go back and edit them because I realized that there are some duplicates on there of the way that I was putting it together. So you guys can go read them on Substack, subscribe there. Again, it is free. YouTube is free as well. And this is something that we will be covering throughout the entire process, doing these daily updates. Again, as a quick reminder, I will be out of town next week. I have somebody that will be sending me the recaps twice a day. I will not be able to do these full things twice a day, but I will do end of the day recaps and do shorts on anything that is really pressing. So we're going to continue to cover this. And then also, real quick before I sign out, I want to give you all an update in regard to the Bryan Kohberger trial, because I know a lot of y'all are highly anticipating that and are excited for that to begin and for justice to finally be served for the victims of the Idaho massacre. The judge ruled today that it will be televised. Okay. And for people who are asking, well, why is that going to be televised but not Diddy? Diddy is a federal trial. Federal trials are never televised. That is the rule. But the Kohberger trial will be televised. If you are one of the people wanting to go there, know that there were going to be an abundance of people there, and they are going to be doing a lottery system. So if you are anything other than press, you will very likely not get in, but you can navigate that at your own risk. But that's the big thing that I wanted to kind of share with you guys about. Anyways, have a great rest of the afternoon. I will see y'all this evening with the end of the day update. And again, make sure those notifications on, and we'll see you guys soon. Bye, everyone. TikTok, don't go away.